Hello, my name is Hannah Champness, and my grandmother is Diana Albert. As I begin, I would like to start off by thanking the community of Serock for welcoming us back, the congregation of Temple Road of Shalom in Washington, D.C., and all of my family and friends who donated to this effort on my behalf, the Foundation for the Preservation of Jewish Heritage in Poland for organizing and building the memorial, and most importantly, Commissioner and Councilwoman Lee Seaman of the United States Commission for the Preservation of America's Heritage Abroad, who was the backbone and driving force of this whole project and without whom we would not be here today. Thank you. My grandmother was born Doba Dresner here in Serock. In early 1939, she buried her grandmother in this cemetery, and when the Nazis invaded Poland later that year, she and her mother and brother hid right here in the cemetery in the dark of night with plans to meet up with her father in a town nearby. At the age of 7, she began a long journey of desperation and tragedy that lasted over 6 years. She eventually went on to escape the Warsaw Ghetto by crawling through a sewer under the walls of the ghetto and running into the countryside. A young girl, alone and fighting for her life in a world that deemed her unfit to exist simply because of her faith. By the end of the war, my grandmother was the sole survivor of her family, orphaned and alone at the age of 13. Her survival was a miracle. Only 1/2 of 1% of Jewish children in Poland survived. She was one of 5,000 where 1 million children once stood. My grandmother is just an ordinary person who somehow found the strength within herself to evade the death, destruction, and despair all around her and to persevere. That amazing fortitude continued in her later life. She eventually earned herself a college degree in a time when many women did not, married another Holocaust survivor with equally amazing endurance, and had 3 children and 6 grandchildren who all love and cherish her more than anything else. She once told me that the last thing her father ever said to her as he pushed her through the wall of the ghetto was, "Get an education, be smart, because that's the one thing they can never take away from you, what's in your mind." She carried those words with her, and now her whole family is educated and successful. But her family is not just the repository of all of her hopes and dreams. As children and grandchildren of Holocaust survivors, we are ingrained with a particular responsibility, the duty to remember and to drive those still with memory to make a mark on society for those who no longer can. My grandma is my hero. She's not a hero as what's perpetuated by the media that downgrades its true meaning. It is someone who not only prevails over their oppressors, but brings back from their situation a means for the regeneration of society as a whole. She is not just someone who survived. She is someone who thrived. When she came to America, she created a life for herself. She and her husband created a new life and a new home where they continued to practice their faith. They went to synagogue where my grandfather was a cantor. She attended all 6 of her grandchildren's bar and bat mitzvahs, and spending the Jewish holidays with the whole family crowded around their dining room table are some of my fondest memories as a child. I even spent most of my summers at Camp Louise making lasting memories and friendships with other Jewish children. That freedom to worship and assemble is a privilege. We live in a world where there will always be discrimination. There will always be war. There will always be destruction, and there will always be loss. It is the unfortunate reality. And knowing that I was raised in a comfortable lifestyle in a stable home where I am free to be who I am is something that I am forever grateful for. But I'm also grateful to those who become examples for others in efforts to make right from what was wrong. And so I stand before you today, a reminder of not only those who survived, but also of those who did not. The last time my grandmother was here in Serock, her family was still alive. Today, her parents are long-faded memories, but the pain does not go away. Losing her beloved brother Alter still haunts her. I do not think my grandmother has gone a day in her life without thinking about her precious brother, or a night without dreaming of seeing him one more time. At the end of the day, there is nothing we can ever do to undo the utter destruction Hitler caused. There is only one thing we can do, and that is to remember, for the memory of those who can no longer speak. And that is why we are here today. They say you die twice. Once when your heart beats for the very last time and you draw your very last breath, and again when your name is spoken for the very last time. As a 16-year-old, I am a representative of the new generation. We are the next step, and if we cease to remind ourselves of the atrocities that took place and of those who were lost, we let those who perished die that second time. This cemetery, memorial, and rededication may only be a small piece of what can be done to remember the Holocaust, but I am thankful to the community here in Serock for their efforts to keep those buried here and who once lived here alive in their memory, and for inviting us here today. It was once said that the legacy of heroes is the memory of a great name and the inheritance of a great example. I recognize that the perpetuation of that legacy is now in the hands of my peers and I. And so I join with you in a fellowship of remembrance, and I vow to never let the stories that took place here in Serock fade away. I vow to never let those who were murdered turn into a mere statistic or fact in a textbook. I vow to give voice again to those who Hitler dehumanized and erased by underscoring that they were real people who loved and learned and laughed and had hopes and doubts and fears just like we all do. I vow to remember. And so I'll leave you with a quote from my beloved grandmother. Remembering alone is frightening, but remembering with others is healing. Thank you.